For those of you that have been hiding under a rock since Turkey Day, a plethora of pleasantly preposterous updates, this time on Wrestling with the Business. Hello and welcome back to Wrestling with the Business. I am your host, Jeremy Bodette, and with me, as always, the Squirrel Man himself, Matthew More Than Man Lambert, back with another piece of action. We're going to do some quick stuff this week, some updates. We have been hiding under a rock, sleeping off the turkey, and now we are back to give you the best that we've got. We haven't slept the entire time, and we did have some catching up to do, so let's jump right into it. Hey gang, before we get into the latest and greatest in the world of professional wrestling, we wanted to tell you about another show we've been binging lately.
Now, if you're anything like us, you're constantly rereading the books you love, listening to your favorite song, or watching your favorite movies. But we also like to get a fresh take on the things that we know and love. Scarifire does exactly that for the horror genre of film.
Scarifire is hosted by a couple of steely-eyed missile men, aptly named the Ace and Gov. Now, these guys have extensive experience in the performance genre, whether it be music, the stage, film, or, dare I say it, the squared circle itself.
Each week, Ace and Gov train their eyes and ears on a new target of the genre, and nobody is safe. Classic, foreign, indie, slasher, and Gorno alike.
So if you've got a hot date with a complete psycho, a classic you want a fresh take on, or just some time to kill in the car on your way into work, you should check out Scarifire. Scarifyer at the link below.
Now back to the action.
There was an event that occurred this past weekend that you probably did not hear about. It is called Starrcade. And Matt, I have to ask you, how come nobody heard about this show?
So it happened on Sunday night, December 1st. There was no promotion whatsoever. It was an hour-long special. They've been doing the Starrcade event now for the past 2 or 3 years on the WWE Network. Usually it's been pre-recorded. This was the first one that was live. And like I said, they didn't promote it at all on Raw, SmackDown. There were a few good matches on the card, but nobody knew it was happening.
Why would you... They didn't even televise the whole event, right? There was only, I think, 2 or 3 matches that were actually televised. It was mostly a dark show, wasn't it?
It was mostly a dark show. Yeah, the main event was advertised as being a cage match between The Fiend and Braun Strowman. That's a pretty incredible match, but nope, wasn't shown on TV, wasn't shown on the video feed. There was a 4-way tag team match for the women's tag titles that was pretty decent. Return of Alexa Bliss, first time she's wrestled in months. And yeah, no one saw it.
Yeah, that's right. She came back on Raw to help Nikki Cross, right?
Yep.
That was on Raw that happened.
She ran down for a save.
So, yeah, I mean, I don't know why you would only televise some of the action, have nothing aligned with anything else. I mean, the dark matches are great because it's an opportunity for you to kind of experiment a little bit and see what goes over well. Almost like a really good stand-up comedian going to a small club and refining their material and trying to get something that's really going to be good for their HBO special. But this whole halvesy thing, using a big name with a good pedigree on it like Starrcade, I mean, did they run out of money? Does it not make any sense to push it when you got, you know, TLC so close to Survivor Series? I mean,
that's my guess. They don't want to make it, for some reason, they don't want to make it a full-fledged pay-per-view event, 3-4 hours long. So they just make it this one little 1-hour special. I mean, it started out with an interview with Ric Flair in the ring. There was a tag match between the OC and Street Profits. Another match that was advertised was a last man standing match between Lashley and Rusev, which didn't happen. Ended up being a regular match between Lashley and Kevin Owens, and then Rusev ran in at the end and caused a DQ.
Yeah, and then they link those events to Monday night.
Yep.
So it's almost like they didn't want you to watch because they did not the exact same thing, but something very similar.
Very similar. And they hardly mentioned that show at all on Raw the next night. They mentioned, I think, one time that Kevin Owens and Lashley just faced each other last night, but they didn't say Starrcade, they didn't say the outcome, nothing.
You know, I'm sure that dark matches like the main event at Starrcade happen all the time, and I would much prefer not to know about them because that would be a match that I'd love to frickin' see.
Yeah.
And knowing that I didn't see it pisses me off to no end.
Yep, absolutely. Another big topic that happened this week is there's a big return to WWE.
Yeah, you know, I think a couple of months ago, it leaked that there was a pretty good chance that my man and yours, Mr. Hollywood himself, John Morrison, might be returning to WWE after a 8-year hiatus, right?
Yep.
2011, 2012, I think was the last time he showed his mug. He's been working the independent circuit since, staying sharp.
You may have seen him as Johnny Impact or Johnny Nitro or Johnny Mundo or Johnny Kick Him in the Ding Ding.
Johnny Wrestling.
Mm-hmm.
So he's been working, right? He's been on TNA. He's worked the independent circuit. I mean, it's not like he's been, sitting on the couch getting fat or anything like that.
Oh, yeah. Made some movies.
Last night on WWE Backstage, it was officially announced at the tail end of the show, which I don't know why you don't open and then have him on the show. I don't know why you don't do that. That would be the right way to do it, I guess, is why they didn't do it. Right? Wouldn't that be great? You announce it. Hey, we've got a super cool announcement here. The return of someone great. Boom, his music hits. Out he strolls, smoke, sunglasses. Wouldn't that just be awesome? But whatever. I'm just a coal miner. He officially signed. We don't know the details of the contract. We don't know how long it's going to be for at this time. They are claiming that they don't know what brand he's going to go to yet. I really don't know how you send him to any other brand besides Raw.
SmackDown could use the help, though.
Yeah, but I think SmackDown's roster is full. It's only a 2-hour show. I think the boat's full. If you put him on that boat, you're going to have to push 1 or 2 people off that boat. And that doesn't make sense to me. But in a 3-hour show, when you got the Rusev and the Lashley thing coming to a close, that's going to be stitched up, hopefully, for the love of God, at TLC. I think that there's an opportunity for some openings at the mid to upper card level. I think he'd be a great contender to take the title back from Rey Mysterio. That'd be a great way to build the title up. Again, I love Rey, but I think he's going to have the same problem that AJ had, and that he's going to hold the title. He's going to be competent, but he's not going to elevate the title. And I think that Morrison's somebody that could really elevate the title, especially if he's in the same kind of shape that he was the last time we saw him on WWE. I think this is a huge grab for them. I think everyone was sort of kind of cheering in the background. So we really hope AEW gets these guys, but I think he's a little too mainstream for the AEW crowd. I think AEW wants to see more. They got plenty of talent between Jericho and Moxley. They got plenty of talent that's sort of trickling down from WWE. It'd be really great to have that new talent or that more unknown talent really rise up from the ranks. At least that sort of seems to be the angle that they're pushing right now. So really excited to have Morrison back. I really hope that they do some fun stuff with his character. There's a lot of opportunities. They need to bring out the old movie star type situation, especially with how relaxed things have been with The Miz lately. There's definitely a gap there, and I think he'd make a heck of a heel if he can cut a decent promo. So really excited to have him back. I think this is huge potential, and frankly, they cannot bring him back soon enough because Raw's performance these last few weeks has really, really been lacking.
So a couple weeks ago, we had some open spots on Survivor Series teams. We had open spots on NXT War Games. In January, we've got the Royal Rumble coming up. So why do you think it is they announced this big return on Backstage rather than having him be a surprise entrant in one of these big shows?
they're trying to do two things simultaneously. They are trying to make backstage relevant, and at the same time they're trying to make backstage relevant, and they need to be more efficient with their human capital. Thinking back to some of the conversation that was taking place on the investors call that I listened to for Q3, there was a lot of talk around efficient use of their on-air talent, and they talked a little bit about how they did some investments, pulling some talent in that they initially hadn't really planned for 2020. I think Morrison isn't being pulled in early. I think he was always kind of planned for 2020. I would be surprised to see him at TLC. There's been very little build up to TLC, so if they were pushing some sort of storyline like me and a mystery partner, or I'm calling you out, anybody in the locker, they've been doing a lot of that lately. Anybody that's man enough in the locker room, get out here. If there was more of that kind of stuff, I might think that would be a good push. He would be a nice surprise at the Royal Rumble. There is not a one person that would watch Royal Rumble on the off chance that John Morrison might be there. Right. That doesn't already watch. So all you're doing is you're giving a treat to the fans that are already watching by having him there. And guess what? If you're ordering the Royal Rumble, if you're watching the Royal Rumble on a Sunday night in January, especially if you've got friends over, you're hosting something legitimate, then you know about the history of the Royal Rumble, and you would much rather see some of the old fogies come back and make a token appearance, see him in the ring again, maybe see him throw a couple of people out. That's what the Royal Rumble is all about. Royal Rumble starts the build-up to WrestleMania, right? That's the beginning of the WrestleMania build-up. So I don't think they could do it, but it wouldn't be maximum use. Now, maximum use would have been doing it in a similar way that you did the CM Punk. Hey, we've got a big surprise for you guys, appearing on the show tonight, making his comeback, and then let John Morrison announce, I'm really excited to say that I've signed with the WWE. I'm really excited to be back on the top of the heap. Looking forward to giving you guys a hell of a show. Blah, 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 blah. That would have been a much, much better way to push it. But
yeah, definitely.
They need to make it. They need to make backstage relevant, and the only way to do that is to break some sort of news every week. Otherwise, I can just read it on the internet the next day. 11 o'clock on a Tuesday, that is not a great time slot. So they need to earn it. Okay, up next. So, in the spirit of the WWE shuffling things around a little bit, they've made a very interesting move lately. Samoa Joe has been injured. I believe it's his arm. Was injured. I believe he broke his arm, actually. And since then, they've chosen to use him in kind of a new, unique way. Tell me about that, Matt.
Yeah, the past few weeks, he's been doing commentary on Monday Night Raw. So, several weeks ago, I think it was when Brock Lesnar's first night back on Raw after quitting SmackDown, the commentator who was... the color commentator who was there at the time, Dio Madden, who I thought was doing a really good job. Brock Lesnar F5'd him through a table, and he's been out selling the injury ever since. So Samoa Joe the past few weeks has been doing the commentary, and he's been doing a heck of a job. I gotta say, I really like hearing his voice on commentary. I think he needs to permanently replace JR. Or not JR, the King.
We've talked a little bit about what makes a good commentator versus what makes a bad commentator. What is it that Joe does that really drives home what we want other commentators to do?
His experience in the ring, I mean, he's been wrestling near 20 years now. He is fully able to get over the action in the ring and the people performing in the ring. Much better than we've heard on commentary for several years in WWE. And the way he's able to deliver that information, it's interesting, it's understandable, and it makes you want to listen to the commentary.
The one thing I will say about it, and I do like having Joe in the booth. I think that 3 men is still a little crowded, but
Absolutely.
The other commentary that we get feels rushed. Joe is exactly the opposite.
Yes.
Very relaxed, making comments, making valid, lucid, good comments.
Mm-hmm.
Whenever he sees an opening, he's never rushed. He's never overhyped. You never hear him screaming into the mic. He's referencing his past experience and his understanding of what's going on. It'd be great if he brought in a little bit more information about what's going on in the locker room. Because he has that unique insight, right? He's the kind of guy that can walk through the locker room and ask a guy how he's doing and get a real answer. So if they want to really push that sports angle, I think that Joe would be a great opportunity for them to do that.
Yeah, definitely.
So do you think this ends when Joe heals up and he goes back, or do we think that this is a career transition for Joe?
As much as I like him in the commentary booth, I think he has to get back in the ring. I don't think his injury or any of his injuries have been serious enough that this is a career transition. And
he's not a young man.
It's true, but I think he's younger than AJ Styles, who still sees himself going for a couple more years.
Yeah, I think you could probably milk him for a couple more years. It'll be interesting to see what kind of a contract extension or agreement he gets the next time around. And usually there's like a little pitter. It tends to taper off. 5 years, and after 20 years, it's like, how about 3 years?
And the fan in me, the fan in me says he still has not gotten that major push in WWE that many of us think he really deserves. So, if nothing else, I really want to see that happen.
Do you think he's a world championship or a universal championship caliber
Most
performer?
Definitely.
You think universal?
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, I no doubt he's a hell of a performer. I give it to him, but so is Rey Mysterio. No one's thinking that he's going to be a universal champion anytime soon.
I thought he was going to beat Lesnar last week.
You hoped so hard it became a belief. Okay, you would have been shocked if he won. That's good writing. By the way, it's just a one-side comment that has nothing to do with this. That's a sign of good writing. If they pull you into it so much, and then they're able to rip the rug out from underneath you without you being like...
I think Joe would be an excellent heel champion. You have guys like... Well, Seth Rollins is a heel now, but when Seth Rollins was a babyface going against Joe, you had Roman Reigns going against Joe. You've had him face all of the top guys, generally when they were the champion themselves. I think it's time for him to have a run with the belt for sure.
Yeah, the days of being a lifelong heel or a lifelong face, I think are behind us. This new flip-floppy, type scenario. Hollywood Hogan was pretty much always Hollywood Hogan, right? He started out as a face, but once he turned heel, he never really went back. And, the same thing, Roddy was one of the best heels in the business. I think this yearly flip-flopping, unfortunately, is going to become the norm. Probably John Cena was your last lifelong face. Unless he comes back and does something different. But anyways, good to see Joe in the booth. Happy to have him.
Yep, definitely. We move on from a possible career change to a few more career changes that have been waiting in the wings.
Yeah, it's the end of the year. Q1 is coming up. Contract releases and adjustments are in the air. And one thing that's happened over the course of the last year that seems very interesting, and maybe it's only interesting in the context of the existence of AEW, is the fact that a lot of wrestlers are actually asking for their release from WWE. As a matter of fact, I went through and I threw together a quick list of everyone that has sort of either requested a release or has participated in some suspicious activity that would indicate that they may be interested in a release. Luke Harper, of course, very famously this year asked for his release and was not given it. Ty Dellinger, of course, Jon Moxley actually was granted his release and went to AEW. Hideo Itami, the Lucha House Party has very publicly announced their free agency. Mike Kanellis, Sin Cara, Jordan Miles, who got his wish in probably one of the most unpleasant ways possible. Oni Lorcan. There's been talk of Matt Hardy potentially retiring from the sport after his illustrious career. I believe he made his first match appearance in 1994, so that guy's literally been wrestling since I was in kindergarten. And then we have the people that have sort of participated in some suspicious activity. So that would be Luke Harper went in to get a trademark on sort of the name that he was using on the independent circuit. That would be Brody Lee. And two pretty big surprises, at least for me, Andrade went in and trademarked his El Sombre and El Idolo gimmicks, as well as Charlotte Flair went in and trademarked her old name, I believe Ashley Flair, spelled a little bit differently. So I think nobody is surprised to see some of these, I should say, D, E, or F level performers that really can't get any sunlight underneath the gigantic trees that are the superstars of the WWE universe. But I think when we hear that Matt Hardy's going to retire, it sort of raises some eyebrows. And I think when we see Andrade and Charlotte Flair trademarking names, what do you think that tells us about the state of the business when you have Charlotte Flair specifically, given that she's one of the biggest women's superstars? She can play face, she can play heel, and of course she's Ric Flair's daughter. All the controversy that he goes through, it seems to be on a weekly basis with the WWE. Does that say anything about the nature of where she's going, or do we think that she just wants to shore up her base just in case?
I think with her in particular, it's more of a branding issue. I mean, she can't get the name Charlotte. That's most definitely owned by the WWE. But the Flair name, the kayfabe Flair name, and her real name is Ashley, I think it's just setting herself up for the future just in case. And it may not even mean may someday go to a different wrestling promotion. Maybe it just means she wants to get into acting or, do some podcasting or something else along those lines and wants to have that trademark name to fall back on.
It would be interesting to see if she ends up securing a very lucrative deal. WWE superstars are starting to build a little bit of a reputation for using some very creative techniques to try to leverage the fact that to try to leverage better contracts using some very effective negotiation techniques. And I think that there's a great chance that this is a really effective negotiation technique to go to it, to look at a potential another promotion and say, hey, look, I'm carrying this with me. It's trademarked. It's mine. I'm going to carry it with me. And so you don't have to worry about me losing, all the value that comes with the brand, because that's a WWE brand. And there's too many people that, WWE, if they have the trademark on Sin Cara, what the hell is Sin Cara going to do?
Well, ask the old Sin Cara. He had to change his name when he went back to Mexico.
And they bring in some other guy to play Sin Cara. So especially when you're a masked performer, makes it especially difficult because your face isn't yours, for lack of a better way of putting it. So, what do we? Does it say anything that? This seems like an inordinately high. Certainly, an inordinately high level of exposure that we're seeing. Before, it was almost seemed like a point of shame. Like, am I going to get signed again? Like, I don't know. Is this guy going to get signed? He's been a moderate level promoter, but we don't know how the business is doing. Like, and now it seems more like, hey, yeah, we're out of here. These guys suck. If anybody else is interested, please contact me. It just seems much more casual.
Well, it was the same way back when WCW was around. I think the fact that AEW now exists, a legitimate competitor to WWE, now wrestlers can openly say, we have a better offer here. I mean, you saw it with Randy Orton. He put up some pictures next to a sign that said Elite in a hotel, and that immediately led to speculation. Oh, is Randy Orton going to AEW, or is he just, biding his time and trying to get more money on his current contract? And he signed another 5 years with WWE, I'm sure, for much more money than he was already making. So just the fact that there is that competition out there, it's just a ploy to get contracts increased. And WWE is going to shell out as much money as they can to prevent people from going to the competition. That's why they are putting extensions on contracts, like a Luke Harper who was injured for some time. They extended his contract because of that injury, because they're not going to let him go, because they probably know he will be sought after from their competitors.
Yeah, oftentimes it's not. How do I want to put this? Oftentimes you maintain talent not because it's the right talent for you, but because you don't want someone else to take them and make them the right talent for them.
Right.
And it, sometimes it's more about not that you need the food, but that you want to see your competition starve. Yeah, I think that's definitely driving the Luke Harper situation, and Mike Kanellis. I mean, that's another one. Why do you have that guy around? Like, doesn't make any sense. You're not even using him, and yet they refuse to release him. So,
and he specifically said that he didn't have any hard feelings towards WWE, or he wasn't being used properly or anything like that. He feels like he can do more, and if WWE isn't going to use him, he would like to be allowed to go someplace else so that he can wrestle, so that he can provide for his family and actually feel good about himself. It was something along those lines. He had a whole thing on Twitter about it. So some of these people aren't leaving because they're frustrated. They're leaving just because they know they can do more.
Yeah, and I think it's really unfortunate. I think the WWE sets a really bad precedent when they release guys like Moxley, who are great wrestlers, but
they didn't release him. He just finished up his contract and didn't renew.
But that's what I'm saying. Like, it's like they couldn't. It's almost like there's this unwritten rule that we can't end on a good note.
Right.
It's like, hey, you know what, Mike? I really appreciate where you're coming from, and F you. And we're gonna keep you here, and we're gonna hide you in a closet underneath the stairs like Harry Potter. And, we're going to drive you into the ground, and we're not going to use your talent, and no one's going to even know who you are in 2 years, and therefore no one's going to care. And, you'll take the offer for $50,000 that we give you because, we've drained all of the name recognition out of you, and, you're almost unmarketable anywhere else. And now you create a scenario where there's so much animosity over the situation that,
Yeah, it doesn't make sense when they release guys, or they allow the releases of Ty Dillinger or Hideo Itami, especially Itami, who was injured for over a year of his time in WWE, but when he wanted his release, they let him go. But then they tack on time.
Because he's going to go to Japan.
They tack on time to Luke Harper, who was injured. They tack on that time and don't let him go. And yeah, Shawn Spears and Kenta are now doing great things in AEW and New Japan, respectively. So, it's a weird precedent. It doesn't make sense when they do it for some and not for others.
I think AEW could use another one or two big men, too.
Oh, yeah.
I think they've got... I think that that's a gap, and I'm not super keen on the big guys fighting, but they're a couple big guys short. I think they could still do 2 or 3 more, and I think that they would be totally fine.
I was thinking that watching Dynamite this week, how much bigger Jon Moxley is than some of the other guys in AEW, but he was one of the small guys in WWE.
Yeah, it is an interesting perspective. And until you stand inside a ring and you really see how high those ropes are, it's very difficult to get perspective, especially when you add a show like WWE. You know, John Cena stands in the ring and you think he's the average guy.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because he is the average guy. There's, you know, half the roster's taller and half the roster's a little bit shorter. And then you see Ray Ray standing in the ring and you're like, okay, well, Ray Ray's about my height. And, okay, he comes up to John Cena's nipple. So, yeah, he's ginormous.
Yep.
It really helps you kind of... It's very easy to lose perspective when it's just a whole bunch of big people always fighting together. But then, again, AEW separates itself from that by saying, no, we're going to put Luchasaurus in the ring with, you know, Jungle Boy.
And Marco Stunt.
And Marco Stunt, yeah.
4'5".
I don't know, but man, he looked tiny.
Oh yeah.
This past Wednesday night, he looked wee. He looked little. He looked tiny. So it'll be interesting to see how things play out. It'll be interesting to see what people actually get released and then where they end up going. Well, gang, there you have it. All the news that's fit to speak on. Comment below on what you think the most interesting topic from this past couple of weeks has been. Has it been, Starrcade not getting pushed at all? Has it been Morrison's recent return to the WWE, Samoa Joe on the mic, or the myriad list of wrestlers that have requested at least the release for this past year? I think the most important thing to take away from this entire thing is that wrestling is a dynamic environment, and every day there's something new happening. You cannot take a week off, because if you take a week off and sleep off the turkey, you're going to end up missing out on some really big news. So keep tuning in here. We will continue to provide you with updates as often as we possibly can on these new and exciting topics in the world of professional wrestling. Follow us on all the social media, Twitter, Facebook. And as always, keep kayfabe, follow the money. We'll keep wrestling with the business.